Lesson 2.3, Adding Vendors. To add vendors, we need to go to the Vendor Center, and there's several ways to get there. We can use the Vendor tab here in the middle of the home page. We can use the vendor icon in the icon bar, or we can go to the vendor menu and select Vendor Center. Now, just like in the Customer Center, we have a list of the vendors along the left. We have transactions related to that vendor down on the bottom right, and we have contact and various other information available in the top. In the vendor list area, the balance total will be the balance that you owe to the vendor. In the transaction window, you can filter the transactions. So let's say we want to look at all the bills that are still open. And this shows there is one bill that is still unpaid. I can double click on this transaction and will take me to the form so I can have a closer look at it. Here we are back in the Vendor Center. There are additional tabs for more information. You can look at all the contacts. You can look at all the to-dos, and this list connects with your calendar. You also have notes, and you can also pin a note so that it appears in the upper right so that important information is visible at all time. And you have a list of all the emails that have been sent to this vendor. To edit the information up here in the vendor area, you can either edit or you can double click on the vendor name. In the first tab, we have all of their address information and contact information. Keep in mind that the vendor name in this field can be a nickname. It doesn't have to be the official legal name. The name that appears down here in the Billed From box, this is what will appear on checks and envelopes. You can edit the contact information just like you saw in the Customer Center, and you can select a different field if you prefer to have their LinkedIn information showing here. On the payment settings, this field here is very important. This is the name that will print on the check. So this is where you'll want to have the company's official legal name that they want to appear on a check. The account number field is important as well. If you write a bill, all of your bill payment checks will have the account number stamped on that check. The vendor tax ID goes in this field, and if they're eligible for a 1099, go ahead and check this box. To make your bookkeeping faster, you can select up to 3 different accounts that will automatically populate the transactions. These are just defaults, and you can easily override them. And under additional info, you have a cell for vendor type, and you have cells for custom fields. We'll show you a bit later how to use custom fields. Now, just like in customers, you can add a new vendor by selecting the new vendor pull down. And again, I caution you to not enter any information in this opening balance field. If you enter information here, it will mess up your balance sheet, and then you'll have to call a ProAdvisor like myself to come and fix it for you. Resist the temptation to put anything here. Leave this field blank. You can also enter vendors on the fly. If I were to write a check and I want a new company called Awesome Vineyard Management, I can either quick add, which will get me this window, and I would select vendor, or you can also select setup, and again you would select vendor. Now, one thing I would like to point out is that a vendor in QuickBooks may not necessarily look and smell like a vendor. A vendor is anybody that you send money to. There is another choice here called Other, and I do not recommend that you use Other. It's kind of a black hole, and these names disappear off of lists. So ignore that there is an Other choice. And you want to categorize people in terms of whether or not you send money to them, they would be a vendor, whether or not they give money to you, that would be a customer, and also whether or not they're an employee and they get a paycheck. And one more side note, occasionally you'll have a business that is both a vendor and a customer. You need to give them a unique name and make that name obvious. So you would say Awesome Vineyard Management and then in parentheses say vendor to make it clearly different from Awesome Vineyard Management on your customer list. So here we are back in the Vendor Center. You'll enter your information as usual. So there we have it. Lesson 2.3, adding vendors.